San Antonio, what is going on? This is the It is the playoffs. The playoffs are here. The playoffs are now. We are here to help win you this championship, bring home the ship, bring home some money with our big bets, which paid off greatly last week if you took them. However, we also are talking controversy today in our listener league. We are talking to all of our listeners. Please go send us your questions on Facebook Live, on Twitter. You can follow me at Big Poppy Brandon M. You can follow Michael Jimenez at 210 Fantasy Gods. Woo! Playoff spectacular, baby. Michael, how we doing, brother?
Oh, baby, I'm feeling great. And of course, as always, we're gathered here to celebrate life, celebrate fantasy football. As you said, we are in the middle of the playoffs, middle of a little bit of a controversy, too, with our listener league. Man, this is absolutely insane what we've been going through this week.
Yeah, and for those of you watching on Facebook Live, we may look a little different. Usually we're both headsetted up. Usually we're both rocking and rolling businessmen. Right now it looks like I'm in the mob. I got a headset on. I got a phone on. Right now, what happened? It looks like if you're on Facebook Live, do not fret, do not worry. You're going to hear our beautiful voices. However, nothing else from the station looks like it's making it through. But if you are way to go, Dan. Exactly. Dan Silano running the boards. But regardless, we're answering your fantasy football questions. We might look a little bit different. However, we're going to make sure we get to everybody's questions. And that starts right now. Michael, we already got questions coming in. Before we hit those, who is in, who is out? Some last minute out decisions coming in before the show.
Oh, I know. Breaking news coming in. Ezekiel Elliott, Dallas Cowboys, is out this week. That announcement made just 15 minutes ago. Fact of the matter is that he was a first-round draft pick in basically every league this year.
Yep.
He is out, just like Christian McCaffrey was out yesterday as well, right? So these big names are going down. Ronald Jones from the Buccaneers, who's had a fantastic season, he is out. Michael Thomas done for the year, so don't even bother with him.
Crazy.
Julio Jones, Kenny Galladay, again, Deebo Samuel, Daniel Jones from the Giants, Myles Gaskin, and Duke Johnson, all of them are out.
Yeah, it is going to be a crazy finish to many big playoff games today, including in our listener league. As many know, ESPN's standard way of scoring, it looks like, for playoffs is a two-headed playoff game. So two games to decide a victor, and we saw some controversy with that in our listener league. So explain that a little bit, Michael, for those at home, maybe listening on Facebook Live, listening on the radio, whatever the case. What is the controversy that we are facing in our listener league?
Well, the controversy started 5 days ago when I sent out a tweet saying congratulations to Gabriel Diaz and Matthew Deal for reaching the Super Bowl in the ESPN San Antonio Fantasy Gods Listener League. Gabe Diaz, his team name, outstanding, Mexican Adam Schefter. And then Matthew Deal, his team name called the Cyborgs. So I'm like, hey, they both won last week, right? They took me out. They took out Chad Rodriguez. We thought, okay, those two are going to be in the finals in the Super Bowl. And then we started looking at the scoring, and the scoring says that it's actually a 2-week playoff. So
Right.
It's basically you combined weeks 14 and 15, and then the Super Bowl's actually week 16, 17. So the controversy is, and maybe some listeners can help us out here, maybe send us a tweet or a message on Facebook. We have the question of, should we do what the board says, what the ESPN scoring system says, or should we do it the way that we originally intended, which was just a knockout elimination type of thing?
Yeah, we did not intend to do this because me and Michael are really not big on it. However, now that it is in the progress, we're on two different sides of the field, right? Mike was like, hey, those need to be in the championship. That's done. Let's make it happen. Whereas I'm like, if I'm the other guy on the other side of the fence, I want the opportunity. Anybody can go off one big game. What if my guy's next and I go off and make it to the championship? So I think we're going to have a fan vote today, and that's how we're going to decide our playoff champion. But with that, let's get to some Facebook questions real quick, Michael. And if you have a question on Facebook, please feel free to send it in, or you can feel free to call in to the Kia Basso vacant phone lines, 210-656-3776. Once again, it's 210-656-3776. Keep it locked in, though. We're going to be talking about all fantasy football. Right now, we're taking all of your questions. So get to Facebook Live, get to Twitter, get to where you need to get to make sure you send your questions in. Michael, what's up?
Before we go to Facebook, I actually had one DM to me. Okay,
Okay.
so this particular person has who has Ronald Jones, who's out, right? So needs to make a replacement. He has the choice between Tony Pollard, Le'Veon Bell, or Bowden Jr., who last week had 7 receptions for 82 yards for the Dolphins. It's a PPR league, so it's Pollard, Le'Veon Bell, or Bowden. What do you got?
I would take Pollard for sure. Now that Zeke's out, I think Pollard is going to be a huge play. He's been getting some great looks. He's looked speedy on the ball. He looks very elusive whenever he has the ball. He's not making many mistakes. So I think Pollard would be my pick this week now that we know Ezekiel Elliott's out.
I completely agree. And I hate to say this, but it has looked throughout this year that Pollard might actually be just as good as Zeke in the backfield. Zeke is coming down, which is sad because they give him that big contract, but every year his stat line goes lower and lower and lower. I think Pollard's the best play out of this, and I think he's going to have a good game. It's a good matchup for them. So thank you for the DM, Sean Denzer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Facebook Live, we got Michael. I say, need y'all's help. Carson, Connor, CH, Pollard with Zeke out. Need one. This is a good problem to have. There's a lot to dig deep in. So
Yeah.
he needs just one, I assume, right? It's just one.
Right, and I would take Connor out simply because Connor is a game time decision. He has an injury and that's a Monday night game, so you're not going to be able to replace him, right? So I would knock Connor out. CEH going up against the Saints defense, which got just decimated by Jalen Hurts last week, which is so annoying for me. But they don't seem to run the ball that often anymore. So I'm going towards Pollard.
I actually could not agree more. I think Carson is the most explosive back, but Pollard, we're going to see what he can actually do now as the main workhorse back. So I'm excited for that. So I think that's a big one. We also have Sherm Roberts asking our favorite question every week, defensive questions. He said, Miami defense or Tampa Bay? Listen, this might sound like a question of the left field for maybe some regular, Joe Schmo fantasy football players, but if you're making the playoffs, every point, everything matters, and defenses matter. Miami defense or Tampa Bay? Who you taking, Mike?
Out of this one, I'm going to go ahead and say Miami's defense, simply because they're playing the Patriots. They're at home. The Patriots don't really seem to get it going very often when it comes to offense. Cam's getting sacked a lot. I think that's a better play. Miami has actually been one of the top scoring defenses in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and don't knock it, man. Last year people took New England's defense way into the playoffs because they were outperforming everyone else's D. I think Miami's going to have a good game. Tampa going up against the Falcons on the road. The Falcons, they have weapons. They sometimes lay eggs, but they sometimes blow up as well. I think it's a safer bet to say the Dolphins.
The one thing to know for Dolphins fans, I actually, of course, as you see the little banner above me on Facebook Live, I'm a Texas Tech graduate, a Texas Tech fan. Jakeem Grant plays for the Dolphins and usually is their punt kick return man. Super speedy, fast, takes them back to the house here and there. He is not playing today, so if you're looking to get any points, I guess, on a kick return, punt return, that might be a little lessened with him out. Devontae Parker is now out. Mike Gesicki is out. It's going to be a shorthanded offense for them. So I think that defense is definitely going to have some room to play and have some room to grow with some fantasy football points. I know, Mike, also, we got Gabe Diaz in the chat saying he's good with either. He's ready to play a second game if need be. He's ready to play a second.
The good thing is that the prizes that we have enough prizes for 3 or 4 people, okay? So Miller Lite and Jim Beam have been good to us, and they're providing us. So essentially the way that I think we're going to go about doing it, Brandon, is whoever wins gets their first choice. Whoever's second gets the second choice. Because I'm not going to say you get this prize if they really liked this other prize, right? So, Gabriel, thanks for being a good sport. And Matt Deal has also been a fantastic guy about this. He's been like, hey, man, just whatever. We're having fun. So that's a very good deal. Hey, you mentioned some players who are coming back. Drew Brees is coming back this week. Going against, after 11 broken ribs,
Yeah.
Drew Brees is back. Brandon, for those of you, because I know somebody last night, I was playing a poker tournament yesterday. Last night he says, I got Drew Brees off the waiver wire and I'm playing him. Would you play Drew Brees first game back?
Here's the thing, Michael. In one of my leagues, I'm in a 16-man league, and I am second place in the playoffs, and I'm pushing through. I played Derek freaking Carr, right? Because all of my quarterbacks were done. Derek Carr puts up 2 points, gets knocked out of the game. I would have been much happier to play Drew Brees. I do think it is a risky pick. Drew Brees is one of the toughest SOBs in the league. He can play through anything, but 11 broken ribs is a lot to come back from. I do think be weary about playing him. If there's better options on the free agency wire, I would take that. However, the waiver wire is depleted this time of the year, and I think if you got Drew Brees, I would be playing him as well.
Oh, I agree with you on that one. I mean, I'm a huge Saints fan. I personally hope that the injury helps him out in a way because it kind of rests his body. One of the things that we've seen with the Saints the last few years is that Breeze starts off hot and then just dies towards the end of the year. His body does
Yeah.
not hold up. Now, because of the injury, he was forced to rest for 5 or 6 weeks. I think this might be a good thing for him over the long haul. It doesn't mean he's going to do well today, but I think over the long haul might be a good thing for him and the Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I think right now we might be stuck in the matrix right now or something. But however the case, we it looks like it's going to be a little collaboration, a little ESPN friendly collab because Jason Minix is jumping in the chat asking, with Zeke out, would you go with Swift or Pollard? We just talked about how big a belief we have in Pollard right now with Zeke out. He looks incredible when he's getting touches. However, Swift is looking just as good. I mean, the guy's as consistent as they come. What are you taking? You taking the consistency or the big playability?
I'm going to take the consistency. I'd probably go with Swift on this one. Okay. It also depends. Do you need to have, well, first of all, is it a PPR league or not? Right? Because I think Swift would help out a little bit more in a PPR league. I just think that you have to ask yourself the question, whether it's this question or any other question, do you need guaranteed points or do you need big play potential? Are you already down? We already have 3 games that have already been played, right? 6 teams have already played. So I think if you need to have the big points, you go with Pollard. But if you need to have that consistent point, I would go with Swift. And I'd probably go with Swift anyway.
Yeah, I think for me, Swift is going to be the pick. If you look at his fantasy football points projections, it looks at 16. That looks to be just about right. When you go back, I'm looking at his schedule right now. 2 games, Mike, 2 games when he's actually played, because he's been hurt, but when he's played, only 2 games has he scored less than 12 points. Only 2 games. The dude has been consistent as they come. I definitely would go to him. I also think the Cowboys, unfortunately, have been struggling here and there to run the ball. That offensive line seems to can't get anything going. So for me, if Zeke Elliott is not projecting the way we think he is, Pollard should. However, if we go from history, Pollard's looking to have another 8, 9 point game because of that offensive line troubles.
One little caveat to the whole Swift projection there is who's going to be the quarterback. Now, as of right now, Matthew Stafford is considered to be a game time decision, but they're saying that it's leaning towards him actually playing. If he is playing, then it is Swift, most definitely. If Stafford is not playing, then Pollard would probably be the better play at that point.
Well, now the other thing to that is something that me and you both stayed tried and true to is projections when it comes to defensive rankings. The San Francisco 49ers have the fifth best defense, so it's not like Pollard's going to have a field day. He's going against a pretty solid defense, whereas Swift is going against the 27th ranked defense in the Titans. If you're looking at defensive matchup, Swift has a better defensive matchup. If you're looking at consistency, Swift has better consistency. You're looking at PPR, Swift's going to have the bigger upside. It just makes sense to go Swift over Pollard, specifically this week.
Well, I agree. I think Swift is the play. But the thing is, though, is that Pollard will probably have more touches than Swift. So, yes, you're right. He's going up against this one team that has an excellent defense. It goes back to like my grievance against Miles Sanders, who, by the way, I benched last week, right? Miles Sanders is that type of player who will get you 100 yards or 95 yards, but 80 of it came on one play. And that's the thing. You just kind of chip away, and then you get that big run. That's what Pollard is capable of. He's capable of breaking through and getting that big run. So when you're playing a good defense, you have to ask yourself the question, how many touches is my guy going to get? And if you had to say, okay, I'm going up against the 27th ranked defense versus the 5th best defense, if the touches are dramatically more going up against a good defense, you kind of have to just trust that something's going to happen, right? But in this case, I think Swift will catch the ball enough to make it worth your while to take him over Pollard.
About the playoffs. We are now in motion. You're talking to two very unbiased football fans here. Me and Mike never show what football team we're going for. As I'm rocking the Vikings starter jacket, he's rocking the Saints shirt with the beads. I'm rocking the Vikings hat. I mean, listen, we're fans first and foremost, but we are fantasy gods overall, everything. So with that, keep it locked. You're tuned into the Fantasy Gods on ESPN San Antonio, 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, and on the go, as always, on ESPNSA.com.
The Fantasy Gods is sponsored by RDK Advisors. Are you a life insurance agent or financial advisor looking for a new start? RDK Advisors is the destination for independent agents and advisors. Get direct appointments from top insurance companies. Build your contract, own your book, be independent, but don't do it alone. Call RDK Advisors at 210-508-0369 or visit rdkadvisors.com.
San Antonio, what is going on? It's your man, Brandon Big Poppy Medina. We got Michael Jimenez in the building. We are talking fantasy football. You're listening to the Fantasy Gods with you every Sunday from 11 to kickoff. Having a good time here in San Antonio. Listen, if you don't got your barbacoa set, it's the playoff week. You're already failing. You're already on the losing side right now. You got to have your barbacoa ready to go. The pit needs to be already getting ready to burn. You need to be icing down your drinks. It's going to be a great day of football, and we are here to help you through that. Make sure you win your championship. We got a question on Twitter, Michael. I don't know if you saw. I just tagged you in it. But we got a question asking Rashard Higgins or CD Lamb, which is an interesting one. Rashard Higgins has been peppered with targets over the past 2 weeks. Has had 21 points and 19 points for the Browns. You might be asking, who is Rashard Higgins? Well, guess what? He might be your playoff stud of the year right now. He is tearing it up. CD Lamb, though, consistent player, has the big boom bust potential. Who are you taking in that matchup right there?
Oh, Rashard Higgins all day, every day on this one. He has just proven himself to be a quality wide receiver out there with no ODB. With no ODB out there, Higgins is actually doing very, very well. Last two games, scored a touchdown each, 6 receptions both games. They're looking his way. You got to play him.
Absolutely. And when he says ODB, he does mean Odell Beckham, not Old Dirty Bastard from the Wu-Tang Clan, just so we are all clear on there. However, let's talk a little bit. We got Sherm Roberts asking one more, Tannehill or Brady? We have seen this question more this year than I think any other question. Truly. Michael, haven't we seen this question at least once every 2 weeks, once a week?
And what it shows you is that they are pretty equivalent to each other, right? This is a good problem to have this week. You have Brady going up against the Falcons defense, which is awful, right? On the road in a dome. You've got the Titans going up an awful defense in the Lions, right? I would probably go with Brady this time, but I'm going to say that reluctantly.
I think either or these two are so close, they're going to give you very similar games. I don't think you're going to get a huge game out of either, but I think if you're chasing a huge game, Brady's the play simply because that pass defense for Atlanta has been just awful. They are letting up the most wide receiver points in the league. I mean, you look at it. If you have Chris Godwin, if you have Antonio Brown, if you have anybody like that, you need to be playing those guys. Tom Brady's going to have a great day passing because Ronald Jones is out, which means Leonard Fournette should not be a healthy scratch like he was last week. He should be playing. But Tom Brady, I think, has the bigger upside of the two. I think Tannehill's consistency is what draws people more, though.
Which is funny because this might sound contradictory here because, we talk about, blessed he who starts. I like the Titans receivers today. I really do. I like AJ Brown. I like Corey Davis. They're consistent. They do a good job. You know what you're going to get with them, right? So that doesn't mean that it's a bad play to start a Tannehill. I'm just thinking that it's probably a better play to start Brady, but it's not going to be that much better. I think they're pretty equivalent to each other this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, right now, what I like to do is get into a little thing we like to call Thou Shall Bench. Now, when we're talking about thou shalt bench, Michael, what are some names that stick out to you that need to absolutely be out of your lineups, or if you have to play them, you have to play them, but you should look to pivot from?
We just talked about it last segment. The first one that comes to mind is Drew Brees. I'm a huge fan. I'm cheering for him to go off tonight. But the fact of the matter is that I'm not a buyer right now. I'm not buying that stock right now. Now, 2 weeks from now, if he shows that he's getting back, he has his arm strength, he shows some mobility, I think that would be a better play. But not right now, man. I would not start Drew Brees if you have him in your lineup. That's one name that I have. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I think for me, a name that I have is not really a surprise name, but I think any Cincinnati Bengals players, I'm not excited to start today. I think the Steelers defense all the way around is going to be pretty solid. If you have Tyler Boyd or you have T. Higgins and you must start them at a flex or something, that's fine. But I think there's options on the waiver wire right now for you to go get that could be better, like a Rashard Higgins, like a Marvin Jones, maybe. Whatever the
Right.
case, I think those would be better plays than any Cincinnati players for me personally.
Another name right now that I hate to say, we just had a conversation about this last night with a friend of mine, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson going up against a very tough Colts defense, so many injuries. He doesn't have any weapons anymore, man. Deshaun Watkins is one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the league. He is, and I would love to have him on my fantasy team most years. But this year, no running game, no weapons on the outside. It's going to be very tough for him to get some points today. So I'm just letting you know, if you have a better player or you have a comparable player, you may want to look at the matchups on that one.
Yeah, and I think the last name for me that might come back to bite me in the ass for sure, but I don't know. Are you going to be trustworthy of Emmanuel Sanders today? That's my big question because here's the thing: KC's defense has been pretty good, pretty solid against wide receivers, and it's kind of a two-part question because if we're saying Emmanuel Sanders should be pivoted from, also Justin Jefferson's going against a pretty stout defense in Chicago over there that has been locking down receivers. So should we really be looking at defensive matchups too heavily for those two guys who should be the guys for their team this week?
Well, let's talk about that. Emmanuel Sanders, he's been boom or bust this year for the Saints. He either gets points or gets nothing. The problem that I have with that is it's not that I have a problem with it. It's just understand that it's a different dynamic when Drew Brees is under center compared to when it's Taysom Hill. When it's Taysom Hill, he is the running threat. Now that Brees is back, you don't have that mobility that's there. So therefore, players like Alvin Kamara are going to have a bigger game than they normally do because it's back to the normal offense. So if Kamara is now is a bigger part of the game, then what ends up happening is that takes away from the receiving. I think they become more balanced with Drew Brees under center. Kamara should have a big game, but that affects the stats that you would see from Emmanuel Sanders, who again is boomer bust. And I hate that about him. He's either going to get you 80, 90 yards and a touchdown or 20 yards. He doesn't get anything in between.
Yeah, and I think this week's going to be a pretty bad week for tight ends as well. Dallas Goddard doesn't have that great of a chance with Arizona. They're pretty good against the defensively for tight ends, as well as Jonnu Smith for Tennessee. They're pretty good against tight ends over there in that Tennessee game as well. So I do think Jonnu Smith and Dallas Goddard might be something you can maybe pivot from. I do think there's options there, here and there on the waiver wire. But for the most part, those are who you need to bench. And now, Michael, let's get back to talking a little bit more about general fantasy football and answering some questions. Once again, if you have questions, please feel free to send them our way on Facebook Live or follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Big Poppy Brandon M, or you can follow the one and only Michael Jimenez at 210 Fantasy Guide, or give us a call on the Kielbasa Bacon phone lines at 210-656-3776. Make sure whenever you're calling, make sure you have those questions ready to go, because we are in full game mode over here at the Fantasy Gods. And with that, Michael, what matchups are most intriguing to you today for fantasy football progress, to get some productivity out of players in a specific matchup?
Well, I actually have a question for you. Help me with my team, okay? I've been playing fantasy football for over 20 years, and there's this one media league that I've been in for most of those 20 years. This is the one that I take the most pride in. There's good money in it, and I seem to do very, very well every year. Last year, I lost the first game of the season, won the next 13, first round of the playoffs, which was week 15, one and done, right? This year, I started out 1-2, won the next 11, so now I'm on an 11-game winning streak. I'm 12-2. I am playing the same team that I beat in week 14 last week. I doubled up in points on. I won 168-84, right? And I'm so afraid, man, because she's got a really good team, and I kind of feel like my team just went off the deep end. Michael Thomas is one of my receivers. He is now gone for the year, so I need for you to help me pick between a few receivers, okay? Well, actually, between two.
Okay.
Corey Davis or Amari Cooper?
Wow, that was out of left field. I did not expect to hear the follow-up of Amari Cooper after Corey Davis. Okay, so this goes back to what we've been saying, and the thing is, in the Fantasy Gods, we walk the walk and we talk the talk, right? We don't give you advice that we wouldn't do, correct? Right, Michael? That's what we live by. So, Amari Cooper is absolutely the number one in Dallas. Had a great game last week, 15.1 points. You look at it from a PPR standpoint, he gets targets. He's had 2 games that were under 5 points. That's it. The other ones are all over 10, all over 12, whatever the case. Corey Davis, Mr. Consistency himself, right? Playing a great year of football. Right now, I really, really think this is the best question you could have given us, because I'm sure a lot of people are in the situation. And for me, I am going to roll with Amari Cooper. I think Corey Davis had a rough game last week. I think he'll bounce back against Detroit. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but I think in the playoffs, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. You please correct me if I'm wrong. In the playoffs, when we talk about playoffs, baby, right? When we talk about playoffs, we are looking at the biggest boom potential as well. We're not looking just for 10 points, just for 12 points. We want the 20. We want the 18. We want the 30. Amari Cooper is going to give you the better boom with the same consistency level as a Corey Davis, versus Corey Davis going off for 20. It doesn't happen. So Amari Cooper, I think, is the better play, for better or for worse, Cowboys fans.
The fantasy god move that I did with this was that I benched Keenan Allen like 5 minutes before the game, because I was on Twitter and I saw that comment that he might be on limited rotation or limited plays. Just pulled him out, and all of a sudden he got 17 yards or something like that. So so now I'm really digging deep into my bench here, and I'm actually kind of leaning Corey Davis a little bit, because Tannehill's a better quarterback than what Andy Dalton is now. Tannehill's going up against a defense that's not as good as the 49ers defense. All signs are pointing towards Corey Davis for me on this one. But I hate it, because Amari Cooper is Amari Cooper, And I'm probably going to flip a coin around 11:55 and make this happen. We actually have another Amari Cooper question coming in on Facebook
It's
Live.
rough.
Amari Cooper or Justin Jefferson? Nicholas sent that question in for us. Wow, that's a good one too.
I think Nicholas saw the Vikings attire and he said, "Let me put this kid on the spot." Right? I got two questions put on the spot on me right now. This is not a fun one right now. So I think this is tough. Justin Jefferson by far has the worst matchup over Amari Cooper. Chicago, go back and look at receivers against Chicago. They have been incredible against wide receivers. They've been very good. Now they've had their games where they let up points, but for the most part, they stuck around that number 2 to number 3 spot defensively against wide receivers for fantasy points. Amari Cooper, on the other hand, is playing great football as well. I think Justin Jefferson, here's where it flip flops, Mike. Justin Jefferson has the bigger boom to give you the 20 plus points, right? He has that. We've seen that week in, week out. Amari Cooper, though, has the more consistent play, will get the target, stuff like that. This is so
Amari
tough.
Cooper, Amari Cooper's getting in the end zone though. A touchdown in the last 3 games for Amari Cooper. 51 yards, touchdown. 43 yards, touchdown. 112 yards, touchdown. And even the games before that, 81 yards and 67 yards. So he's getting his touches. He's getting his points. Even with Andy Dalton back there in the center, he's getting his points. But this is Justin Jefferson, man. This is a great question. Good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I'm looking at Justin Jefferson's stats right now, dude. In the beginning of the season, Homeboy was up and down like a roller coaster, right? He was just, I mean, it was just, you did not know what Justin Jefferson you were going to get. We get to week 8, Mike, listen to this. Week 8 on 5.6 fantasy points in week 8. We get 9.4. Then we get 21, 17, 26, 27, back down to 9. It's just like what Justin Jefferson are we going to get? And that's that Justin Jefferson was going against Tampa Bay last week, who has normally a pretty good defense, but not better than the Chicago Bears. So if he got 9 over there at Tampa Bay, only got 9 at Detroit, only got 5 at Green Bay, to me, Green Bay's played him pretty well. I think Chicago's going to play just as good. However, last time they played Chicago, this is a tip for anybody. Nicholas, this is for you, my man. Last time the Vikings played Chicago, Week 10, Justin Jefferson, 8 receptions, 135 yards for 21.5 fantasy points. If
Yep,
we get a
he
repeat
had
of
10
that,
targets. He had 10 targets, and you look at the target total that he's been getting. 3 weeks ago, 13 targets. 2 weeks ago, 12, and he had 8. They look his way, man. Even when Thielen's going off, they look Justin Jefferson's way. So I would say Jefferson.
I would play Justin Jefferson as well. I think when it comes to the playoffs, you got to make the big risk reward plays. They're going to get you points regardless, both of these guys. But I do think the tighter knit question would be the question that Michael Jimenez posed of Corey Davis or Amari Cooper. Very tight there. Corey Davis has played incredible. He's been consistent. Amari Cooper's getting in the end zone. Corey Davis is getting targets and catches. So it's just it's playing devil's advocate. I think Corey Davis is going to have a less of a boom game than Amari Cooper, but could end up with more points just based off of targets alone. So we have Andrew Fleener. Last question before we go to break, asking for Fournette or McKissick, Big Ben, Goff, or Tannehill. Go for it, Michael. What do you got?
Okay, the name that stuck out of this one was Goff. Okay, I mean they are 17-point favorites today against the Jets at home. Okay, Goff is a big league quarterback. Big Ben, we don't know what we're gonna get from him, man. He has really just annoyed me because he has so many weapons, but it just something the last few weeks just hasn't looked right for the Steelers. So I would say Goff on that one. Fournette or McKissick? I would say Fournette. Ronald Jones has had a fantastic year the last 5 or 6 weeks, right? He is not in the lineup this week because of an injury. Fournette, if Fournette can get you 80% of Ronald Jones, you would take it all day, every day.
I completely agree. Fournette, Goff is going to be my go-to as well. I think you explained it well. I could not have said it better myself. And before we go to break, just let it right there. David has a good question. Jacob Robinson or Jeff Wilson?
I'm gonna let you take this one, man.
This is a good question. I think this is going to be a good problem to have. I'm sorry, James, not Jacob. So
Yeah.
James Robinson or Jeff Wilson. Oh man, I like Robinson. I think I'm gonna roll with it. I've had him all year. He's been one of the best players, most consistent players all year. I'm gonna roll with the consistency for the playoffs between these three.
Right, and that's the thing there. You know, when you have running back by committee, it's difficult to want to ride with that. I think Robinson's the better player, more consistent player, gets more touches.
Yep, and that's exactly what we need right now. We need consistency, and we are consistently the best fantasy football program of all the lands, and specifically here in San Antonio on your station, your go-to for everything sports radio and fantasy football. This is ESPN San Antonio on 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, and on the go at ESPNSA.com. What is going on, San Antonio? We are live on ESPN San Antonio. This is the Fantasy Gods. You are tuned in. My name is Brandon Big Poppy Medina. That is Michael Jimenez. Follow us on Twitter at Big Poppy Brandon M and at 210 Fantasy God, or follow at ESPN underscore SA. Make sure you get your questions in. We are only 20 minutes out till kickoff. We are here to guide the ship to the championship, if you will. We are here to take all your fantasy football questions on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you can get us. Make sure that to send us in your fantasy football questions, your fantasy football dilemmas. This is a playoff week, Michael. We cannot not answer questions. This is the biggest week to answer questions, the biggest week to make sure you are solidified in yourself, in your soul, in your spirit, and in your mind that you're going to win this playoff game.
Yeah, and make the decisions that you're comfortable with. Just because you make the right decision doesn't mean that you're going to win. Okay. I was playing poker last night. I played a fantastic tournament. We had 20 some odd players, finished third place, right? I can tell you this, Brandon. I did not play one hand incorrectly. I played every hand correctly, still did not win the tournament. I got third place. That's the thing about fantasy football. It's very much like poker. There is a luck element involved to it. There's also a bad luck element involved to it. So like last week, I benched two players that more often than not I would start, but because of matchups I didn't play them, and it ended up burning me. And that night I had to think to myself, did I do right or wrong? Right? Because I had a 20-point swing by starting the wrong defense. And then I also had a Miles Sanders that I benched because he's Miles Sanders. You don't know what you're going to get, boom or bust. And it ended up being boom when I was planning on him being a bust, right? So the thing about setting your lineup right now, you have to be comfortable with your selection, and you don't want to say, man, I should have started the other person. If you select you just basically play your hand. Play your lineup hand. Go with the best lineup that you can make, and if you lose, man. That just happens. But so is life, my man. So is life.
Hey, listen, wise words right here from the fantasy football vet, if you will, Mr. Michael Jimenez. Let's talk a little bit about making you guys some money, though, because I'll tell you what, we were making some money last week. I mean, on Twitter, if you were following, we were hitting parlays. We were having a good time. It was a nice day to be betting with the fantasy gods. But let's talk daily fantasy right now. I have a very ugly squad here, Michael Jimenez, that I'm very confident in. A squad that is not full of big names, full of guys here and there, but I think can definitely turn out some money on daily fantasy. Before I go there, what does your daily fantasy football lineup look like?
Oh my God! Like you, I bet your lineups are identical, man. Because I don't have very many star players. I'm looking at my lineup right now. I'm thinking about how many of these guys are actually going to be Pro Bowlers. I have one, right? so, so I have. Let's see if he can take the show on the road. Let's see what Jalen Hurts can do on the road. I have him as my quarterback at 5,900.
Hey, baby, same thing. My boy Jalen Hurts is in my lineup as well. That's right.
Hey, if he's going to rush for 80 or 90 yards and pass for 200 or 250, that's a good day for me. Get me two touchdowns for 5,900. That's what I want. I've got DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard and Leonard Fournette as the backs and the flex. My receivers, Brandon Ayuk, Corey Davis, McCole Hardman. Got the Rams defense. Hardman for 3,400. Ayuk for 6,300. Tony Pollard for 5,200. These are low points for people who are going to be starters. And you're laughing because I know I got at least three of yours.
Yo, this is outrageous. So I have Jalen Hurts, Tony Pollard, Corey Davis, Brandon Ayuk. We are going to the line. The only players I have different are I do have Amari Cooper in there. I have James Robinson, and I have somebody I normally do not, but somebody that normally turns up whenever Michael Thomas is out. I got Traquan Smith in there for only 3,200.
Yeah.
Boomer bust guy. Why not? $3,200. You're not losing much. And I got the Rams defense, and I got my man, my number one favorite fantasy football player, my favorite name, my ride or die, Michael Jimenez, the tight end amongst tight ends. TJ Hawkinson is, of course, in my lineup. The man, the myth, the legend. He is in my lineup as well.
I have no idea why you have such a thing for TJ Hawkinson. I mean, from the day I met you, you were like all about him, man. Between him and Darren Waller, I don't know who you have a bigger crush on. You would be playing Waller if he hadn't already played, right?
Bro, the thing is, the man is Mr. Consistency. He gives you fantasy points out the wazoo every week, week in, week out. Listen, 10 points week 11, 13 week 12, 15 week 13, 16 last week. The guy, it's not a beautiful game, but he plays a beautiful game himself. So I think the guy gets you fantasy points. If and no buts about it, the dude is the man. I love him. TJ Hawkinson, hit me up, brother. I need to treat that man to a nice steak after winning my championship in one of my leagues.
I just got DM'd a message saying it's Sunday fantasy football playoffs, and I feel like I already lost because he went up against Josh Allen. Josh Allen just went off.
God.
4 touchdowns, 359. And you know what? You and I debated this. I told you that Josh Allen was going to be the elite quarterback this year. We debated this. This was my guy.
Yeah.
But man, Wow, he just turned up, man. 359 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 33 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I'm going to say that if you started him, you are probably very relaxed on the couch watching football today.
Absolutely. And if you did not start him, which my father did not start him against me in one of our playoff games, thank you. If you did not start him, you are definitely regretting that. As a matter of fact, did not start Josh Allen or Devin Singletary, who had like 18 fantasy points.
Yeah,
So
if you had Aaron Jones, you're having a good day. But yesterday playing poker, seeing guys getting upset because they had Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers throwing out there 143 yards passing. He did have a combined 2 touchdowns, one in the air, one on the ground. But for a playoff game from Aaron Rodgers, you've been riding him all year. That's not the point total you wanted.
I'll tell you what, I have a bone to pick with our league a little bit, Michael Jimenez. I got gypped not making the playoffs in our listener league. We've talked about this before. I have Aaron Jones. Look at him just going off on my team for no reason. I have no reason to have him go off because I'm fifth, not in the top four. Even though Michael Jimenez and I had a better record, Michael led his division. He took care of business in his division. I'm in murderer's row. I'm in Rikers Island over here, and then I get screwed having
Rikers Island.
having Aaron Jones go off, and I have nothing to win from it. Hurts my feelings, honestly. But
Yeah, I
we
think we
gotta
have a consolation bracket. I think we have a consolation bracket going.
we
Hey,
do we do
who do you
we
got on
gotta
your
we gotta get
spreads,
to
man?
yeah, we got to get to our bets. So when it comes to spreads, I think there's big ones today. There's a lot of huge spreads, huge lines today that I do like. For me, I like the Colts a lot, but I do think the Texans can cover the plus 7.5. So if you want to tease that, I think the Texans are a lot better than what we're giving them credit for. The Colts are very, very good, but the Texans seem to have pretty close games. And then last but not least, for me, I do like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to cover at 6.5. So those are my two. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I really do like the Bucks covering as well. I think they're going to decimate the Falcons. Um, I'm looking at the Chiefs, man. Again, I am a homer. I am wearing the Saints beads. I'm wearing the Saints T-shirt. I've got a cap, a pullover from the Saints that I'm going to be wearing all day today. But man, I have no faith in it. I think the Chiefs are going to come in, and the ones that are going to be marching in is going to be Kansas City marching out with a win. Okay, and to cover only 3 points, you have to ask yourself the question: do you think the Chiefs are going to beat the Saints? If so, then you think they're going to cover the spread because the spread's 3, right? I like that one. Um, I'm also taking a look at that Vikings Bears game. Vikings -4. Tough defense that they're going up
Yeah.
against, but I like the Vikings in that game.
Yeah, I got him at Bovada at -3. So I think if you can get him at 3, that's a perfect thing right there. However, do not trust the kicking game of the Minnesota Vikings ever. So if it relies to a field goal, you might be losing some money. So I don't know about that one. But with that being said, let's get to break a little bit. Thank you guys for listening. We have one more big segment coming up. Make sure to burn some sage. It's playoff week. We are talking
Yeah.
fantasy football here on the Fantasy Gods. We'll keep it locked 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, and on the go at ESPNSA.com.
The Fantasy Gods is sponsored by RDK Advisors. Are you a business owner worried about losing key employees? Stop the revolving door. Let RDK Advisors create an executive bonus plan to attract and, more importantly, maintain your key employees. Call RDK Advisors at 210-508-0369 or visit rdkadvisors.com.
San Antonio, what is going on? You are tuned into the Fantasy Gods. We are with you just for the next 6, 7 minutes or so, and then we're going to let you go. Get ready for kickoff. Make sure, like I said, Michael Jimenez, you got to be burning that sage. You got to be saying your prayers, light the candles. Make sure everything is shooting your way for good luck. And right now, we are here to help you answer any last minute questions. Also, some last minute pickups on the waiver wire. Michael, who are we lighting the candle for that needs to either make their way into your lineup, or you should take the chance and put them in and see what happens for the fantasy football playoffs?
We've talked about the names already, man. Leonard Fournette, Tony Pollard. Those are two guys that were probably on the waiver wire. Jalen Hurts, somebody that was also probably on the waiver wire. These are guys that are going to make moves. They're going to score points today. Again, you don't want to have Jalen Hurts if you have a top 5 or 6 quarterback. But if you're sitting there with a Matthew Stafford, if you're sitting there with somebody who is just, you don't know what you're going to get from them, and you need a boomer bust type of thing, and you're already behind, Jalen Hurts might be that guy. He did so well against the Saints defense. The Saints, one of the top defenses in the league, he just ran right over, and all of a sudden Miles Sanders was playing well because of it. I would say those, and then again, Fournette, you get 80% of what Rojo does, Ronald Jones does, you're going to be good. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that, and I think for me, a name that I am definitely saying a prayer for is David Johnson for the Houston Texans. He's somebody that I know I'm gonna have to play in. I believe probably our listener league, but when you look at it, David Johnson. Now I'm not too worried because I had Aaron Jones already, so it's not like they could really screw it up that much. But if you have David Johnson, he's going against the Colts defense, which obviously we've known this year has been absolutely incredible against the run. It definitely is skewed a little bit on ESPN because I think they allowed a couple big games. Like I know one was Dalvin Cook, fantasy football stuff against the Colts defense, so they don't look as good, I guess, on paper because of previous matchups. But don't get it twisted. The Colts defense is no joke. They're playing great football on defense. So David Johnson, somebody I'm worried about, as well as a name that's going to blow your mind because you're going to be like, why are you worried about this guy? Listen, Tyler Lockett, I'm also nervous about too. Washington's defense is no joke. They've been playing great. Tyler Lockett has not had the huge breakout game like all of us were looking for because they have an absolute monster on the other side of the ball next to Tyler Lockett. So I definitely think I'm not pivoting from them, but I'm saying a little prayer for them. And then the last one I need help with, truly, Michael, is I need help with you before we get out of here. Deontay Johnson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is making moves still, but he's going against a great Saints defense. Who are you playing between those two?
I would say Johnson. It's amazing because Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when the season first started, was so fantastic week
Yeah.
one, but they just hide him. It's almost like they just kind of whatever with him, and then Le'Veon Bell comes in and takes a few carries and whatnot. You might only get 12 touches with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so I'd stay away.
Okay, sounds good. I think you're right. Right now, I have it that way. Deontay Johnson's playing. But with that being said, fantasy football people, fantasy football players, fantasy football lovers, this is your one-stop show for all things fantasy football. Now, Michael, after this week, who's going to be the must-pick-up player on the waiver wire that we're going to see blow up? Is it going to be the Jalen Hurts show again next week?
The out of the boom bust potential, Jalen Hurts is that guy. Because we saw how much he did, how well he did last week. Like I said, we sometimes stumble into a running back. Zeke gets hurt. All of a sudden, Pollard is a good play. Jones gets hurt. All of a sudden, Leonard Fournette's a good play. But very rarely do we have that when it comes to a quarterback. And it's not like Jalen Hurts was like a nobody. Hurts was a star in college, right? We knew he was going to be good. We didn't know he was going to be this good this quickly. So, yeah, I mean, he is the guy that you want to pull off the waiver wire if you're even able to, because I know some leagues have disabled the waiver wire pickups.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a crazy week of football. Make sure that you are tuned in to everything going on. There's going to be some players probably going to be missing some time and going to be out later on today. So make sure you have all your updates on Twitter. We'll be sending updates on Twitter. Once again, you can follow us there at Big Poppy Brandon M or at 210 Fantasy God, and follow ESPN San Antonio as always at ESPN_SA. Michael Jimenez, once again, we do this every week. What is your last minute advice for people who are fighting for a spot in the championship today?
My last minute advice is understand how far are you behind right now, because we've already had 3 games played. And if you are in a position where, like, I went against 2 players, I'm already up against 2 players right now who didn't do so well. So because of that, I don't have to take as big of a risk, right? But if you're already behind and you're behind a fair amount where you think to yourself, man, this is going to be tough to overcome, you have to play your boomer bust players, because that's the only way you're going to get a bye, because they have those big games.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew Noto coming in. Last minute question. He said, Irv or Ebron? Help. I have Irv in. I like Irv Smith. Listen, don't fret. I think Eric Ebron's not going to give you as much as a Irv Smith would. Rolling with the Vikings, baby, as always. Keep it locked. ESPN San Antonio, 94.5 FM, 12:50 a.m. and on the go to ESPNSA.com. This is the Fantasy Gods wishing you a happy Sunday. Michael, as always,
May
what's
the
the
fantasy
advice?
gods be in your favor, baby.
Peace.